Welcome back. It's still the conversation, and today we're discussing the assessment of e-waste management in Lagos State, and we have Ibukun Falui. She's the Executive Secretary, E-Waste Producers Responsibility Organization of Nigeria. You're welcome.
Thank you.
For those who do not, understand what e-waste is, please can you tell us what e-waste is all about?
E-waste is electronic waste for short. And these are electrical and electronic equipment that have reached their end of life. They are no longer functional. So basically anything that has batteries or a circuit system, when it's no longer functional, it becomes electronic waste.
Like television, refrigerators, computers,
yeah.
Even our phones, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bulbs, the lamps we have around, devices, speakers, different things.
Okay.
We have them all around us.
Okay, we have an influx into the country of Tokumbo electronics.
Yeah.
Can they be regarded as e-waste?
Well, if they're not functional, they're e-waste. Well, if it's used,
okay.
It's categorized as used electrical electronic equipment, and but for those that are non-functional at all, they're electronic waste. So if it's functional, it's not e-waste.
Okay. Still talking about this e-waste, there is a particular interest in the management of disposal, right?
Yeah.
Why is it important, and what does the effect of it not being disposed properly, what effect does it have on the environment?
Okay, thank you for that question. E-waste is a very special kind of waste because it has a lot of hazardous components in it. Incidentally, it also has a lot of valuable materials. But because of the hazardous components like mercury, lead, very harmful heavy metals and what have you that we have in there, if it's not properly managed, then it puts the environment and people around it at risk as well. Risk of all kinds of health challenges, including cancer, cancer, brain tumor, what we call endocrine depletion, and the endocrine system starts malfunctioning generally. So many kinds of maladies like that can come up, especially for children and pregnant women. Okay. So it needs appropriate management.
Okay, let's look at Lagos State now and its attitude towards e-waste disposal. How would you describe, the Lagos State government reaction to e-waste management?
Yeah, so the Lagos State has been making a lot of concerted efforts to try to make sure that e-waste is managed and disposed in an environmentally sound manner. They've tried to put in some systems in place by implementing existing federal regulations that has to do with e-waste. They've also developed like a draft policy on e-waste management. And what they've tried to do for that is to bring in the informal people that manage e-waste indiscriminately, to try to educate them, to do things properly.
Because we still see this e-waste, being dumped indiscriminately in maybe dump sites or by people's dustbins in their area.
Absolutely. So while the government is putting those measures in place, there's still a very low awareness on these hazards and the right places to put them. The government has worked with us. We've worked together to get some collection centers across Lagos State. But I think we still need a lot more awareness to let people know that these collection centers exist. And then for those informal people that manage it indiscriminately, you do not let it get into their hands. So that's
these informal people, are those the ones that will say, okay, bring it, we can repair it, or what?
Typically, they will come and tell you, we are buying it. You see them going from house to house saying, we are buying condemned batteries, condemned this and that. Yeah, so they will pick it up. People that have also put it into the dustbins where it shouldn't be. Okay. Like it's a special kind of waste. It has no place in municipal solid waste at all. Well, so they will pick it up from there and then try to take those valuable components from it. In the process, they pollute the environment in their methods. So for instance, you see them burning the cables, the cables to get some copper wire in there, and that is very polluting because
hazardous,
it releases a lot of noxious gases that can cause cancer and respiratory problems for people. Those informal people, the government is trying to bring them in and get them to understand that you cannot continue the polluting practice, but the control over them is still not successful yet, and so that practice is still going on. So we need citizens to be aware that you have alternate means, use those means instead of working with these guys.
Okay, my colleague Abimbola has a question for you. You can watch her from the screen.
All right, I'd just like to ask, can e-waste be recycled? And so, because of course you hear, of course, waste generally can be reused, recycled. So, because particularly talking about e-waste, can they be recycled? If they can, how?
Yeah, so e-waste can be recycled, and that's why these informal people go for it. You hear me saying they take the valuable components because it does have a lot of valuable metals in it. You have gold, you have silver, you have titanium. So basically, how is a bit laborious in terms of you need like smelting plants where you will smelt these metals back, and then maybe the plastic components, some you can recycle into other products like seeds and what have you, depending on the ones that are not very hazardous, because they do have some very hazardous plastics in them in there as well. So it can be recycled relatively to an extent, but some components cannot be recycled in it.
So those guys that pick, those guys that go to dump sites and they have their sacks, on their backs and they pick, do they understand or do they know how important e-waste they are, and have they keyed into the management of e-waste, especially here in Lagos?
Yeah, so the thing is they understand how important it is in terms of the valuable components. But in terms of trying to understand that it needs to be managed properly so it's not hazardous, they've refused to acknowledge that.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and it's not, they've refused to acknowledge that and will just go ahead. So despite all the efforts at the federal and even at the state level to key them in, there's very limited success that has been achieved in that regard, because they still go back to the polluting practice immediately after you finish engaging them, because they are more concerned about the financial gains that that accrues to them from the process. And that's
so are they a clog in the wheel of this project? Because again, if you're trying to get people to understand the hazards that come with not, handling these things properly, and they keep going back and they're not keying into, ensuring that these things are done in the appropriate way, would we then say that they are actually a menace into the fight against proper management of e-waste?
Well, absolutely, because of their method, they are definitely a menace, because once people are aware that this thing can harm people, I mean, we've had studies that were done around this management sites and showing elevated levels of metals in their bloodstream, even for they themselves. And then the soil heavily polluted with metals. So they're definitely a problem in terms of e-waste management. But I feel that regardless, it takes time for you to get behavioral change. So you still have to keep at it until you get them onto the right side, fully compliant and doing what is required of them.
This next question I have is almost linked to what Abimbola has asked you and something you have raised earlier. So how do you raise public awareness to residents, about proper disposal of e-waste?
So I think there can be one size, because typically communication, as you're aware, requires different methods. Basically using digital, non-digital, different methods, and even going a step further to even meet people in places where you can meet them, maybe in their churches or their mosques, and letting them know that these things has harmful effects and you need to, watch how you manage it.
Do you have that in place as an e-waste manager?
Not yet, not
Okay.
fully, but it's something that we're working on
Okay.
to make sure we, deploy all the resources we have to raise this awareness and get people to fully recognize and, give it the right kind of the spotlight it requires in the society.
Okay, children are very important, part of this country and of course the state. Is there anything you're doing with children, to also raise awareness, because children are a very, very powerful tool?
Yeah. So we've had competitions in schools,
fantastic.
in primary schools. We've done debates. We've done quiz competition with some schools for the students to understand what e-waste is. Had asked some very important questions, and they did very well. We've also currently we're doing a university competition in Unilag which we hope will cascade to other universities to say what is the methodology, the best way to collect e-waste in campus. So we have this challenge going on right now among some Unilag students that have applied, and we've passed the first stage. We're going to the second stage. And we really do recognize that on International E-Waste Day this year, there's going to be a lot of students' activities as well to do what we call e-waste hunts, so there's a competition that will also be raised to do that among the secondary schools.
Okay.
When you look at the tons of e-waste generated in Lagos, where would you put Lagos? I mean, are we a huge generator of e-waste, or are we just there on the average?
Lagos is a very huge e-waste generator because we take data of the quantity of e-waste that is collected, even for the formal channels, while we do not have complete control over the informal channel. And when we look at the ratio of what is gotten from Lagos in relation to what we have for the whole of Nigeria, it's for now, using our process, is about 60%.
Okay.
Wow.
So definitely, it is a huge generator. And we know we have all the industries here, all the banks, all the offices, and the population as well. Almost everybody has one or two electrical electronic equipments for personal use, not to talk of the ones you use in your homes. So with that kind of population, you can expect that Lagos is a huge generator.
Okay. How do you collaborate, locally to manage e-waste?
So basically, we work with collectors and recyclers. In Lagos, we have about 2 recyclers, and then we have about 22 collection centers.
Okay.
So these collection centers collect from consumers, both individuals and organizations, and then they transfer them to the recyclers.
Talking about collection, I've seen in some Lagos estates where we have these
Beans?
is it? Yeah, bins.
Dino
we have
bins.
glass, paper, metal,
Plastics.
and plastics. How come we don't, we don't have one for this e-waste as of now?
Yeah, so basically, we do have, but it's not as much. Those collection centers, each of them have one.
Okay.
And e-waste, because of the hazardous nature as well, has its own peculiar kinds of bins, which is a bit intensive in terms of cost to get. And so there can be a little bit of reluctance. And also, if you look at the size, a refrigerator is a lot of time is bigger
Than the bin itself.
than the bin itself.
Yes.
So it's not, you can have one for smaller things like phones and stuff, and also maybe for computers and what have you. But for refrigerators, you need like a container and stuff like that. So it's quite, it requires a lot of collection infrastructure, which is quite huge.
So what are the benefits, of proper e-waste collection for the state?
Oh, so the benefits are numerous. For one, we've talked about the downsides. And just the opposite is the benefits, So one, all those public health issues that could come up as a result of the hazardous disposal of materials will definitely not happen. And then it also helps with saving a lot of money that will be going for public health, You reduce lost time of people falling ill and what have you. Generally, the environment is even looking much better. You said you see them, and it's true. You go to repair centers, you see them put out there dirty. Even when you go to dump sites, you see them there because they stay for so long. Nothing, they don't decompose because it has not been managed. So all of that aesthetics, disamenity that is giving us will not be the case,
yeah.
and generally improved health of the people. Then also there's job creation opportunities, because we're talking now about collection centers, we're talking now about recyclers, so there are green jobs that could be created in terms of using that formal channel appropriately. There's a lot of research that needs to be done. There's a transportation movement, so there's quite a lot of opportunity in the value chain if the proper management system is fully adopted and taken up by the state.
I'd like to stick with the proper management issue here, because there's really nothing that we do once it's done improperly, then there is a problem. Now, going through, one of the write-ups here on the website of the World Health Organization, it was stated that lead is one of the hazardous intake or output from burning of some of these e-waste. So Adebimpe asked earlier in terms of public awareness and how much the people do know about some of the bad side to not handling this waste properly. And so how much of this have you done? And are the people, the number of people who are aware of burning, we know it's not good to burn refuse generally, but people who even go the full hog to burn e-waste. So are the people aware of the hazardous impact of these issues?
Yeah, so in terms of being aware, I think quite a lot of citizens are aware that generally it's bad to burn refuse.
Right.
Now, in terms of the people that do the burning, a lot of advocacy has been done in that regard. Now, even physical advocacy, going to meet them in their locations, because we are well aware of these locations, and we've used opportunities of Waste Speakers Days and what have you to go engage them, talk to them, and explain to them that this approach is hazardous. And they tell you, oh, we've been doing it for years and nothing has happened to us. It
doesn't kill like that. It's a gradual
the point.
thing.
It's a gradual thing. And so people feel that once something is not making me cough and
right now,
it's okay. So I think that they need more of like an enforcement, to stop them, because you're jeopardizing your own health and the health of other people as well. So I think that has even gone beyond advocacy. It's more like bringing another kind of enforcement which creates its own awareness. Another kind of awareness which is enforcement, to say you must stop this because it's hurting the people. I think that's what is needed in that regard. But in terms of letting people know, I think more information still needs to go out. Yeah, we still need to do a lot of
especially
putting the message
when
out.
You go to Computer Village.
Yes, those kind of places, and of course the scavengers.
Yes.
I think they're also, because you also have a lot of young people who are also into scavenging, and this could also be dangerous to their health.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So when you're talking about management of e-waste in Nigeria, are you also, do you work with international legislation?
Yeah, we do. There are quite a lot of international conventions that we work with. The Basel Convention, for instance, is one of the critical ones that we work with. We also work with the Stockholm Convention for persistent organic pollutants, because most of those hazardous substances in electronic waste are persistent organic pollutants. Like I mentioned, I said there are endocrine depleting substances in there. There are quite a huge list of them, which affects what we do. So there's also the Minamata Convention on mercury. So there are quite a lot of conventions internationally that we also work with and try to domesticate as much as possible as regards to how far Nigeria is going. Yeah.
Sorry, Adebimpe, I'd just like to ask, because again, you've mentioned some conventions, but the Bamako Convention is a regional convention.
Yeah.
How different is that to the Basel Convention, which you mentioned?
So the Bamako Convention is like a regional convention.
So that's on the continent?
Yeah, for the continent, yeah. For Nigeria, for countries in Africa, just stepping down the Bamako Convention, the Basel onto the continent level, that's it. And so we have some already existing regulations. For instance, the National Electrical Electronic Equipment Regulations 2022, which repealed the previous one of 2011, which has tried to domesticate most of all those conventions locally as to how electrical electronic equipment itself even should be managed, should be produced, assembled, and then even going a step further to adopt the extended producer responsibility, which is what's brought about an organization like ours.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I spoke about the influx of Tokumo electronics into the country, you said, okay, the ones that are functional are still, are good. Okay. What about the ones that are not even functional, that they are sent in with the hope of it being repaired? Isn't that also, shouldn't that be looked into right from the source?
Yeah, so that regulation which I was mentioned has made that illegal, bringing any product that is not functional. Matter of fact, you should do what we call a functionality assessment test before you bring any used equipment into the country. That's the law. So for any product that has been brought and is not functional, what NESRA has been doing is stopping the people at the ports where they can to get them to pay a fine and also get them to ensure that it is recycled in an environmentally sound manner. So we've worked with NESRA over the years, and over 500 tons of e-waste has been apprehended like that at the ports, and which will pass to recyclers, and then the importers have been forced to pay. In the past, they would just repatriate them back to the country of origin, but more recently, they've been using that approach of getting it. Yeah.
Okay. My producer is saying I have just 2 minutes. I want you to just leave us with a word of advice, for those who are still, handling this, what I call it, poisonous or hazardous equipment.
Yeah, so my word of advice, first of all, for our consumers, because I think a lot of us are viewing us right now, is that electronic waste has no place in the dustbin. So we're talking circular economy, we're talking, how will I put it, environmental, not conducting land degradation, if you remember the World Environment Day slogan for this year, restoration and what have you. So there's an individual responsibility that is placed on us. We do not put them in the dustbins. If they're bad, let's see how we can fix them and reuse them. If it's not reusable again, then we immediately give it up for environmentally sound management.
How do they contact them?
On our EPRON website, you can find a list of collection centers depending on where you are, and then you can reach out to them and get them to pick up from you, or you send it out to them depending on what you want. And you can get incentives for doing that as well. So it's not something that you're looking at, oh, it's costing me so much. You could get incentives for bringing those electronic waste to those collection centers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, we've been talking about the assessment of e-waste management here in Lagos State, and Ibukun Falui is Executive Secretary, E-Waste Producers Responsibility Organization of Nigeria. You've heard it. If you have an e-waste, such as, television, computers, phones, that are no longer working and cannot be repaired, there's a place where you can take it to, and you can even get money from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll go on another short break. When we come back, the conversation continues.